Welcome to Revenge Report. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Let's dive in. I'm Bridget Kane. I'm 42, retired from coordinating cargo routes for the Air Force, and my wedding day was supposed to be the one day I didn't have to manage like a mission. But of course, that didn't last long. The officiant cleared his throat. I had just started to say my vows to Daniel when my sister, Melissa, burst through the back doors of the church. Her heels clicked hard against the polished floor, and everyone froze as she shouted, "Stop the ceremony! He's not who he says he is!" Two security guys, hired for the event, but not military, moved in fast. They were on Daniel before anyone could blink. Handcuffs clicked around his wrists as Melissa waved a binder at the crowd, flipping it open. Forged background checks, fake employment records, misleading my family for gain, she yelled. I could barely process it. My dad, standing by the door with his arms folded, didn't look surprised. He looked smug, like this was all part of the plan. The air in the room was thick, ready to snap. That's when Grayson Hart stepped in. He walked in like he owned the place, cool and collected. The CEO of Daniel's company. He stopped right at the front, showed credentials, and said in a calm voice, "This ends now." Security froze. Everyone held their breath. Hart's voice rang through the silence. "You've just compromised an active federal collaboration." The handcuffs dropped to the floor with a hollow clink. The tension hung heavy, but no one moved. No one said anything. The ceremony resumed. Daniel didn't speak. Neither did I. But I stood beside him because nothing else could be said. The silence between us felt more like a statement than any apology could. 6 months earlier, Daniel and I got engaged. We'd met during a private logistics contract, helping with flood relief. It was supposed to be just another job, but somewhere between coordinating routes and moving supplies, I started to notice the way Daniel didn't just work. He cared, he paid attention, and he didn't back down. It was something I hadn't realized I'd been missing, but it hit me like a brick when it did. I called Melissa to tell her. She didn't react the way I thought she would. She was skeptical, and that's putting it lightly. "You fall too fast," she said, voice tight over the phone. "You treat relationships like timelines. Check the boxes, and you're done." Her words hit harder than I expected. I could feel her frustration through the line, like I had let her down. But I didn't back down either. I just told her, "This feels right, Mel." I'm happy that didn't do anything to calm her down. A few days later, she started sending me stuff. Screenshots of blurry documents, cryptic message threads, weird posts from anonymous accounts. "Look at this," she said, voice full of urgency. "This is what I found about him." "Where did you get this?" I asked, staring at the email she'd just forwarded. It was grainy, hard to make out, full of rumors. She didn't even hesitate. "A friend in corporate security," she said, and I could hear her eyes narrow, like she was daring me to question her. I told her to back off. I didn't need this. I didn't need to dissect every little detail of Daniel's life just to make sure he was perfect. We weren't in high school anymore. "Mel, stop. He's fine," but she didn't. The more I told her to stop, the harder she pressed. She started getting more intense, sending more concerning things. Stuff that made my stomach churn. A post on a message board that didn't make sense. An old employment history that didn't line up. The worst part? I could tell she wanted me to see it, wanted me to doubt him. I didn't, but the pressure was there. My dad started in on it too, though in his own way. A week after the first email, he called me. "You're sure you're not being manipulated?" he asked, his voice a little too calm. I could hear the disapproval simmering beneath it. I didn't answer right away. I'd never really questioned Daniel's integrity, but now I was wondering why my family was so sure he was hiding something. My dad and Melissa, they weren't on the same page, but they were both aiming at the same target. I let that conversation simmer in the back of my mind. By the time the wedding rolled around, I was worn thin. It was too much. Too many questions. I didn't feel like I was walking down the aisle toward the future anymore. I felt like I was walking into some kind of trap. The night before, I sat in the bedroom, staring at my reflection in the mirror. The air in the room was heavy. I could hear Daniel moving around the house, probably in the kitchen or messing with the wedding stuff. But I couldn't focus on him right now. I lit a candle from my mother's cedar box. The scent of it filled the room, grounding me somehow, reminded me of the woman who had taught me how to hold my ground. Even when everything around me was trying to push me down. I whispered to myself, just for something to hold on to, "I know how to hold ground." But even as I said it, I wasn't sure I believed it anymore. I was about to marry Daniel, but everything about the situation felt shaky, like I was balancing on a tightrope and the wind was starting to pick up. The fallout started almost immediately. After the ceremony ended, Daniel and I stood there, awkwardly trying to smile for the photos, but half the guests barely even looked at us. It was like we'd become ghosts in the room, ignored or whispered about in hushed tones. I heard one woman mutter to another, "If there's nothing to hide, why did a CEO show up?" The words felt like a punch to my stomach. I wanted to scream that I didn't have a damn clue why Grace and Hart showed up, but I stayed quiet. It wasn't just the whispers. It was Melissa's posts. She kept putting up cryptic messages on social media. "The only one who stood up for you," she wrote, and a flood of comments followed. "You're a good sister. You're doing the right thing." I couldn't stand it. It wasn't protection, it was sabotage, wrapped up in a bow and handed out like a gift. I didn't know how to stop it, or even if I could. Melissa wasn't backing down. And then there was my dad. He didn't say a word to me, not even when the ceremony ended. He just stood there, arms crossed, watching everything unfold like it was all part of a game. He wasn't neutral, he was strategic. He didn't need to speak to control the narrative. He was already letting Melissa's story take hold, letting the questions grow. A few relatives sent concerned texts. "We support you, but maybe slow down. Are you sure about all this?" It wasn't the first time they'd tried to push me into second-guessing my choices, but it stung more this time. Like they were questioning everything I'd worked for. Like they were questioning me. Daniel stayed calm through all of it. He didn't let on how much it was eating at him. He was good at that, keeping it together. But I could tell. I could see it in the way he'd pause before answering questions, in the way he stared at his phone, waiting for a call that never came. His security clearance had been frozen. His job was on the line. I knew this wasn't just sabotage, it was calculated. Someone had given Melissa that folder. Someone had made sure the lie got out, that the seed of doubt was planted right at the most vulnerable moment. And when I thought about it, I couldn't help but wonder, who would benefit from all of this? Who had the most to gain by ruining Daniel? The more I thought about it, the clearer the answer became. My dad and Melissa were aligned, whether they'd admit it or not. Daniel's position had threatened their connections, their influence, their way of doing business. And now, they were both playing this game, and they had no problem dragging me through the mud with them. It made me sick. The more I thought about it, the more I felt like I was losing control of everything. Like I'd been blindfolded and shoved into a storm, and now I had to figure out how to survive it. But the one thing I was sure of, I wasn't going to let them win. Not like this. Not when I'd already seen the truth. So I held my ground. Even when everything felt like it was falling apart. Even when Melissa and my dad were out there, building their own story, trying to destroy ours. I kept telling myself that the truth would win. It had to. I didn't sleep much after the wedding. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Daniel in handcuffs, the way everyone had looked at us, like we were the problem. I had to figure out who was behind this, and I wasn't about to wait around for answers. I needed to find the truth, and the only way I knew how to do that was to follow the trail, wherever it led. So I turned the spare room into a war room. I set up a whiteboard on the wall, marking it with names, dates, URLs, timestamps. Everything Melissa had sent me, everything I had ignored or brushed off as paranoia. I wasn't ignoring anything now. Each detail had to connect. It had to make sense. I started with the folder Melissa had waved around during the wedding. She had to have gotten it from someone, and that someone wasn't just giving her random information. Whoever was behind this knew exactly what they were doing. The more I sifted through those documents, the more familiar the names started to look. One of them, Richard Alton, stood out. I remembered him. Alton was a contractor, disgraced, out of the game for years. I'd flagged his file during a joint vetting operation when I was still working in logistics. He'd been caught up in a fraud scandal, blacklisted by the industry. I'd made sure he stayed off the roster, but I hadn't heard his name in ages. Now suddenly, he was back. His name appeared in one of the blurred documents Melissa had sent me. I dug deeper, pulling up everything I could find on Alton. I found an article buried in the back of a shipping trade journal. Alton had been lobbying hard for a bid on a major shipping contract that my dad's company had been vying for. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Daniel and I had tanked that deal. We'd done the work that exposed Alton's operation, shutting down his bid. I remembered the way my dad had reacted at the time, quiet, simmering anger. He'd lost influence in the industry, Losing that contract had been a huge blow to his company, and he hadn't taken it well. Now, here I was, tracing back a mess of lies and manipulation. And it all led to one thing: motive. I kept digging, following every lead. Anonymous accounts that attacked Daniel on social media. They all followed the same posting pattern: a thread of hatred, moving from one platform to the next, spreading like wildfire. The more I traced them, the clearer it became. These accounts weren't just random trolls. They were coordinated. They all pointed to Alton's company. He had to be involved somehow, and that's when the whole thing clicked into place. Alton was the key. He had ties to Melissa. She had to have known what she was doing when she handed over that folder. But why? Why had she chosen this path? The deeper I dug, the more I realized how carefully this had been planned. The arrest, the viral rumor, Melissa's posts, they weren't coincidences. It was a setup, a way to discredit Daniel and take him down, all to reopen the door for Alton's business and my dad's company to recover their lost influence. I stepped back from the whiteboard, rubbing my eyes, the weight of what I was uncovering settling in. It was all right there. Alton to Melissa to staged arrest to viral rumor. They had set it up, and they were using me as the pawn in their game. I knew what I had to do next. I had to expose them, all of them. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized just how deep this went. My family was in the middle of it, my father, my sister, the people I trusted most. And now, I was in the middle of something I hadn't been prepared for. But I couldn't stop now. Not when the truth was staring me in the face. This wasn't just about clearing Daniel's name anymore. It was about tearing apart the lies that had been built around us. I scheduled the meeting with my dad at his office. No lawyers, just us. I wasn't going to let anyone else step in between us. I needed to hear it from him, what he had to say. I walked into his office, the same cold, sleek space he'd always had. The walls lined with expensive art that meant nothing. His chair behind the desk was huge, imposing. He was already there, looking exactly how I remembered. Calm, controlled, waiting for me to say something. He started with small talk, about the weather, about some new project he was working on. He knew I wasn't here for that, but he kept trying anyway. I didn't bite. I slid a printout of emails across the desk, letting them land in front of him with a soft thud. The timestamps, the names, the connections. I had traced every step, every detail. It was all there. "Stop pretending you didn't know," I said, my voice steady, even though my insides felt like they were twisting into knots. He didn't flinch, just stared down at the paper, then back at me. "Melissa acted independently," he said, his voice almost casual. Like it didn't matter. Like this wasn't a nuclear bomb I was dropping on his lap. I didn't let it go. "You really think that's true? Look at the timestamps." I tapped the paper for emphasis. "Look at your assistant's calendar. Same time, same day. She had access to your schedule. She was working with you the whole time." His jaw tightened, but he didn't say anything. He just shifted in his chair, refusing to meet my eyes. I leaned in. "It's not just Melissa, is it?" "You knew what she was doing." His fingers twitched on the desk. "She acted on her own. I had nothing to do with it." I pressed harder. "And Alton? Why was he in the middle of this?" That's when I saw it. Just a flicker, a crack in the armor. He exhaled, rubbed the back of his neck, then let out a slow breath. Finally, he said it. "Alton deserved another chance. You and Daniel made that impossible." I stared at him for a long moment. "So, you staged a takedown to reopen the door for him?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, but it cracked anyway. He leaned back in his chair like he was finally ready to explain himself. "I protected our brand. Alton had resources. He could have helped us get back on track. You and Daniel made it personal. You killed his chances. That's why this happened." I stood there, frozen for a second. The words felt like they were seeping into my skin, soaking through my bones. "I made it personal?" I repeated, my voice rising. "You backed a liar and you called it business? Don't try to twist this." His eyes narrowed, the anger flashing behind his carefully controlled demeanor. "You think you can just walk away from everything we've built? You think Daniel's some kind of innocent victim here?" My chest tightened. I could feel my heart pounding in my throat. "You were willing to burn everything down to fix your mistakes. You didn't care about what happened to us. You didn't care about Daniel. You cared about your damn power and reputation." His face hardened. "I did what I had to do to protect this family, Bridget. I shook my head disgusted. No, you didn't. You used me. You used Daniel. And you didn't care who you hurt in the process, all to protect your precious brand. I stood up straighter, fighting the urge to punch the desk. This wasn't about business. This was about you trying to control everything. You took my life, my relationship, and you tried to destroy it to fix your own problems. His eyes narrowed. He didn't apologize, didn't show any remorse. He just looked at me with that same cold stare, as if this was all just a game to him. No, I said, as the truth finally sunk in. You made it personal. And I'm done playing by your rules. I turned on my heel and walked out of his office, not bothering to look back. He could keep his damn brand, his damn power, and his lies. I was done. 3 weeks later, the legal notices started showing up at our doorstep. One by one, they landed on our mat. Subpoenas, requests for testimony, formal notices. The names on those papers hit harder than any punch ever could. Daniel, Melissa, my dad, and Alton. Each of them pulled deeper into this mess, each one now a part of something much bigger than anyone had anticipated. The news didn't waste any time. The headline came fast, splashed across the front pages of every online outlet. Wedding scandal leads to procurement probe. It was a joke, a headline that made my skin crawl. No one cared about the truth anymore. They just wanted the drama, the chaos, the family conflict. They wanted to see the wreckage, piece by piece. Melissa didn't back down. In fact, she doubled down. She posted daily, always with a new angle, a new protective sister message. I only ever tried to protect her, she wrote in one of the most nauseatingly self-righteous posts. I did what I had to do. There were always the same few comments too, backing her up, fueling the fire. It made me sick to read, but I couldn't look away. I had to know what she was saying, what she was doing to try and spin this. My dad didn't give any public statement at first. The press called him for days. He ignored the calls, only releasing a vague comment through his PR team. Let the process play out. That was it. Nothing more. Nothing personal. Just the same cold, calculated nonsense he always said when things went wrong. Alton, too, released his sanitized statement through a PR firm. They painted him as some kind of victim, someone who'd been wronged by a system that didn't understand his potential or contributions. It made me laugh bitterly. There was nothing about the fraud, nothing about the manipulations that had ruined lives. Just a polished version of the truth, with the edges blurred and softened until it was almost unrecognizable. Meanwhile, I stayed focused. I stayed quiet. I didn't give interviews, didn't talk to reporters. I didn't care about the noise. What mattered now was the truth, and I was going to make sure I had it all laid out, clear as day. I'd taken over the dining table with papers, files, and printouts, every piece of information carefully organized. My binder was growing, filled with everything I'd collected: emails, screenshots, timestamps, receipts, even the articles that tried to bury the truth. Everything had a place, everything had a purpose. I organized it methodically, each page like a step forward, each piece of evidence a nail in the coffin of their lies. No one had asked me to do this. No one had even suggested it. But I had to. This wasn't just about Daniel's future anymore. This was about my family, my name, my life. I was going to make sure that no matter what they said, the truth would still be standing when the dust settled. I didn't look for shortcuts. I didn't go looking for loopholes or easy wins. I didn't waste time on the sensationalist crap. I just kept going, day after day, making the binder more complete, sorting through every shred of evidence until I knew the full story from beginning to end. Quiet work, no applause, no recognition, just truth, organized. And when the subpoena came for me to testify, I didn't flinch. I didn't second-guess myself. I knew what was at stake, and I wasn't going to let the lies win. The law was going to get the truth, and I was going to make sure it was as clear as possible. I couldn't stop what was happening to us, but I could make damn sure it didn't go unchecked. The people who thought they could destroy us, they were about to see that you don't get away with this kind of thing. Not if I had anything to say about it. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with tension. I could feel every pair of eyes on us, Daniel and me sitting side by side, stone-faced. The press lined the back, cameras flashing, reporters scribbling furiously. There was nothing left to hide now. The walls had closed in, and we were standing at the center of it all. Nina Cheng, our lawyer, was calm and precise as she laid it out piece by piece. "This is about corporate retaliation," she said. her voice cutting through the murmur of the courtroom. Not romance. She started with the doctored files, showing the jury how they'd been altered, details removed, dates shifted. The metadata, the timestamps, everything pointed back to Alton's company and to Melissa, who had worked with his assistant. She ran through it all like a surgeon, dissecting every falsehood with cold precision. Then Grayson Hart took the stand, the CEO of Daniel's company. He didn't look like a man caught in the middle of a scandal. He was composed, his suit sharp, his voice controlled. Daniel's role, he explained, was crucial to ongoing audits and confidential inspections. The arrest jeopardized active federal audits. If those investigations had been delayed any longer, the entire operation would have been compromised. The room went silent. The judge leaned forward in his chair, his attention sharp, eyes fixed on Hart as he spoke. It wasn't just about the family drama anymore. The truth had shifted. This was about corporate sabotage, a calculated move to destroy careers, reputation, and business for personal gain. I could see Melissa sitting across the courtroom, her face drained of color. Her hands shook, gripping the edge of the table in front of her. She wasn't the confident, protective sister she'd portrayed herself to be online anymore. She was just a woman caught in a lie, one she couldn't outrun. I met her eyes for a split second and something twisted inside me. Was she sorry? Was she scared? Or was she still convinced she was doing the right thing? I didn't know. But I couldn't afford to feel sorry for her. Not now. My dad was sitting on the other side of the courtroom, his usual stoic expression in place. But this time, there was something different. He didn't even glance in my direction. He didn't look at me once, not a single glance. It was like I was invisible to him, as if this whole thing, my life, my relationship, didn't matter in the grand scheme of his reputation. It pissed me off. It should have hurt more, but it didn't. The anger had already drained out of me. I wasn't expecting an apology, but I sure as hell wasn't going to pretend it didn't sting. Nina continued, pulling more pieces of the puzzle together, showing how the coordination between Melissa, Alton's assistant, and even my dad's company had been strategic. They had all been working towards the same goal, to get rid of Daniel, to reopen a door that had closed because of us. And with every piece of evidence Nina presented, the weight of the situation grew heavier. The press was eating it up, their questions getting sharper, the atmosphere getting tighter. They had been waiting for a scandal, waiting for something to unravel. They hadn't known how deep it went. But now they did. I sat there, the weight of it all pressing down on me. This wasn't about family anymore. This was about doing what was right. It didn't matter how much they tried to cover it up or twist the story. The truth was out. Melissa was no longer the protective sister. She was the one who'd been complicit in tearing apart our lives. My dad wasn't the powerful figure he thought he was. He was just a man who'd made a dangerous play and lost. And Daniel, he was still sitting next to me, silent but resolute. His face was a mask, but I could feel the tension radiating off him. This wasn't his fight. This was mine. But he was standing beside me, no matter what happened next. The judge cleared his throat and looked at the jury. The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. I felt every pair of eyes on us. But for the first time, it didn't matter. The truth was out in the open now, and there was no going back. This was the reckoning, the one that came for all of us. And I wasn't going to let them walk away from it. Not this time. When Melissa took the stand, I could feel the air in the courtroom shift. She wasn't the confident, self-assured woman I had expected. Her voice cracked early, faltering as she opened her mouth to speak. The vulnerability in her tone hit harder than I anticipated. I wanted to believe I was helping, she said, her eyes wide as if she was pleading with someone, anyone, to understand. But I also wanted to win, just once. I clenched my jaw, feeling something heavy in my chest. The weight of her admission was suffocating. She didn't want to help me. She wanted to fix things for herself, make herself feel like she mattered, like she wasn't the one always left behind. I didn't fact-check, she continued, her voice growing smaller. I just wanted to believe it. Her hands shook as she clasped them together. There it was, the truth. She had let herself be swayed by someone else's lies, by someone else's agenda. She had wanted so desperately to feel important, to win something, that she'd lost sight of what really mattered. The courtroom went completely quiet. You could hear the shuffling of papers, the soft clicking of a pen. The judge leaned in, his expression stern. He asked the question I think everyone was waiting for. Do you now believe Daniel lied? Melissa hesitated, just for a moment, a split second, but it felt like an eternity. Her gaze flickered over to me, then back to the judge. No, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. He didn't. The words didn't bring me any relief. They didn't take away the sting. They didn't undo the damage she'd caused. They didn't fix anything. I couldn't stop myself. I stood up before anyone could say anything, before the judge could dismiss her. I walked across the courtroom, each step feeling like it took me further from everything I had known. The people in the seats all watched, and for the first time, I didn't care. When I passed Melissa in the hallway outside the courtroom, I didn't hesitate. I looked at her, really looked at her, her eyes still wide, still guilty. I asked her one simple question. Did it feel worth it? Her eyes dropped to the floor and her lips pressed together. She didn't answer, not right away. And in that silence, I got everything I needed. The truth. She didn't feel remorse. She didn't feel the weight of what she'd done. She didn't feel anything, except maybe that she'd lost. I stared at her for another moment, but there was nothing left to say. The room around me felt small. She couldn't even look me in the eye. And that was it. That was the last of it. She had chosen her path, and now we both had to live with it. I turned to walk away, my back to her, and I felt a final heavy shift inside me. She was still my sister, but I didn't know her anymore. I couldn't. The rest of the trial faded in the distance. The only thing that mattered was the cold finality of what she had done. The judgment came down like a hammer. Alton was found guilty of tampering with federal documents and intentional defamation. There was no room for doubt in the verdict. His manipulation had been exposed. The lies, the fabrications, the way he'd tried to use my family to claw his way back into a business that had already spit him out. It was all there, laid bare for everyone to see. My dad's firm didn't fare much better. They lost their top 2 contracts, big ones, the kind of deals that kept the company afloat. Investigators uncovered a pattern of bidding violations, ties to Alton, and plenty of shady dealings, the kind of things my dad had thought would stay buried. But they didn't. The cost was too high to hide forever. Melissa, though, didn't face charges. They couldn't pin anything on her legally, but her reputation, that was another story. It tanked. Her clients dropped off one by one. Her advisor brand, the thing she'd built for years, vanished in the blink of an eye. She'd wanted to win so badly, but now the victory felt hollow. My father didn't apologize. He didn't even try. He just looked at me, that same unreadable expression on his face, and said, I didn't expect it to go that far. It was all I could do not to laugh or cry. I didn't know which one would hurt more. He didn't regret anything, not the lies, not the manipulation, nothing. Daniel at least got something back. His security clearance was reinstated. Quietly, no fanfare, no celebration. Just a line in a file that read, cleared. It felt empty. Like a checkbox had been ticked. We didn't talk about it much. When we got home, we opened a bottle of wine, but it wasn't to celebrate. It wasn't even to mourn. We just sat there, the bottle between us, sipping slowly, letting the silence settle over us. There was nothing else to say. It was over. We had fought the battle, won, and now all that was left was the aftermath. I didn't need an apology. I didn't need anyone to tell me I was right. I knew the cost of all this, and I knew it wouldn't fix everything. Nothing would ever really be the same again. But in that quiet moment, sitting next to Daniel, the weight of everything that had happened started to ease, just a little. And I realized this was what mattered. We were still here, and no matter what came next, we would face it together. That was enough. It's been over a year now. Daniel and I live in a smaller city, near a park with a pond. We don't need much. We don't post. We don't explain. We just walk the dog and take the long way home. Sometimes, we sit by the water and watch the ducks. It's quiet here, peaceful. And after everything, it's the kind of quiet I didn't know I needed until I found it. Melissa sent me a letter a few weeks ago. Said she was sorry. Said she'd let ambition make her cruel. I read it, folded it up, and set it aside. I wanted to believe her. I did, a little. But the truth is, it didn't feel like enough. Not yet. I wrote back, not a long letter, just a few lines. Start showing up different. That's how you'll earn it. I didn't want to be harsh, but I couldn't lie either. Words weren't going to fix this. Actions would. I knew that, and she needed to know it too. My dad sent a gift card. He didn't say much, just a note, saying it was for us to treat ourselves. I didn't use it. I couldn't. The gesture didn't feel like enough either. He could send money, could send things, but that's not what I needed from him. It was never about that. Every few weeks, I opened the folder I made, the one with every piece of evidence, every scrap of truth. I don't know why I still keep it. Maybe to remind myself how easily lies can spread, how deep they can cut. But more than that, it's a reminder of what's important. Doubt thrives in noise. Truth thrives in stillness. This was never about revenge, never about tearing anyone down or proving a point. It was about not letting the lies win, not letting them change who we were. And we didn't let them. We didn't. And that's enough.